Good afternoon and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. We're streaming live from the Boathouse at Confluence Park. I'm Jane Scott, and it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be the CEO and President of the Columbus Metropolitan Club and to say welcome this afternoon. We are so used to hosting hundreds of people in this room every Wednesday for our CMC forums, and we really miss you terribly, but we're very, very grateful that we have the technology that we can bring you these programs every week and that so many of you are watching. Thank you so much for viewing. We are very grateful for YouTube and NBC4i who are co-streaming our programs with us today, and I think WOSU is picking up our programming live as well, so thank you. The Columbus Metropolitan Club was founded by 13 women business leaders in 1976 when a lot of them were welcomed into the men's clubs of the day. So they started an organization that would be inclusive to everyone. So we welcome everyone to our broadcast and to the Metropolitan Club. Today, as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, we fulfill our mission of connecting people and ideas through community conversation, and we rely on your membership dues, on corporate support, and on donations. If you're new to CMC, we invite you to go to our website and check out what membership might mean for you. And we'd like to welcome a new member today, Janet Stites. Thank you, Janet, and welcome to the Metropolitan Club. Thank you to those of you also who supported CMC through your continued membership and for those who stepped up to purchase virtual seats for this forum today. These dollars are really critical for CMC's well-being, especially right now, and you can join or renew your dues or donate during this broadcast at www.columbusmetroclub.org. Today's CMC Forum is supported by Easton Town Center, and our live stream partners for the special report series are NBC4, NBC4i, WOSU Public Media, PNC, the Tom E. Daly Foundation, MORPC, Columbus Dispatch, and OSU Wexner Medical Center. We're really grateful for these sponsorships. Thank you very much. Public safety is the top priority during these times, and much of that responsibility lies with the Chief of Police. The Columbus Division of Police has more than 1,800 officers, 300 civilian employees, covers 20 precincts across the metropolitan area, and serves nearly 800,000 residents. New to the position, but with more than 30 years in the division, we are happy to welcome Chief of Police for the City of Columbus, Tom Quinlan. Interviewing Chief Quinlan today is Emmy Award-winning journalist, host of NBC4 The Spectrum, an attorney, and a proud CMC board member, Colleen Marshall. Colleen, thanks for being here. And to start us off, Don Tyler Lee, Deputy Chief of Staff for the External Affairs at the City of Columbus, who led the 10-month national search for our new chief, will make opening remarks. Don, would you come to the podium? And thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Jane and CMC, for inviting me to be part of today's forum. As Jane mentioned, my name is Dawn Tyler Lee, and I serve as Deputy Chief of Staff of External Affairs for Mayor Ginther, and I was honored last year to serve as the chair of the search for our 34th Police Chief for the Columbus Division of Police. Before I turn the program over to Colleen, I'd like to provide a brief overview of last year's search process. It's hard to believe it's been over a year since our process launched. In January, Mayor Ginther announced his plans to conduct a national search. As many of you know, this was the first time the City of Columbus was able to search outside of the division due to a change in the minimum proposed qualifications for the position of police chief voted on and adopted by the Civil Service Commissioners in December of 2017. In April, the search committee was named, and we outlined the search process and timeline. Members of the search committee who contributed countless hours to shape and support this process included Franklin County Sheriff Dallas Baldwin, Siobhan Boyd Nelson, Dee Debenport, Stephanie Hightower, Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Key, Kenny Ramos, Pastor Brian Williams, and ex officio members Columbus City Council member and Safety Chair Mitch Brown, and the Director of the Department of Public Safety, Ned Pettis. These community leaders have deep roots in our city. I am grateful for the diverse perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds they contributed to the search process. Throughout May and June, we engaged a variety of people in a variety of ways to learn what they wanted to see in our next chief. We attended summer festivals, conducted focus groups, community forums, and distributed surveys. We also went to early morning, mid-shift, and late evening roll calls at different police precincts throughout the city to encourage officers to share what they also wanted to see in their next leader. I'm pleased to share that over 4,000 people were directly engaged. The themes were very clear. The community said they wanted a chief who is fair, honest, open, transparent, and accountable. One who leads with integrity, can lead in a time of crisis, and is committed to work across all communities. A chief who supports de-escalation techniques, community policing, and cultural competence. Next, we released an RFP for a search firm, seeking one with expertise in recruiting candidates for chiefs of police. The firm of Ralph Anderson was hired, and Robert Berg, Executive Vice President, became our project manager. In August, Robert spent a very full 2 days on the ground here in Columbus, meeting with a variety of stakeholders, including the search committee, the mayor, the safety director, city council, restored citizens, those experiencing homelessness, faith, business, and community leaders, safety and security partners, the NAACP, the FOP, representatives from the immigrant and LGBTQ communities, and police chiefs from our neighboring jurisdictions. All of this feedback, the surveys, community meetings, and stakeholder conversations helped shape the job description and inform the type of candidates the search firm recruited both locally and nationally. 36 candidates applied by our October 14th deadline. The search committee reviewed their credentials and selected 5 to bring for in-person interviews. The committee advanced 2 finalists who participated in a community forum that was held last November at East High School, with several hundred in attendance and over 1,000 tuning in online. On December 17th, Mayor Ginther named Tom Quinlan as the 34th police chief for the city of Columbus. I remain grateful to all of the community members who participated in this historic search process. The mayor charged us with conducting a thorough, open, transparent, and comprehensive search, and I am proud to say we delivered on that commitment. I didn't know Chief Quinlan before the search process, but I've had the opportunity to get to know him over the past 16 months, and here is what I've learned. He is accessible, approachable, authentic, and accountable. He is not afraid of feedback. He's flexible, fair, a father of 3 daughters, and fancies himself a pretty decent cook. He is honorable, humble, hardworking, and a husband of 29 years. He is a good listener and a likable leader. He is a veteran and has a clear vision for the division of police. He is dedicated to developing a diverse division and is committed to its cultural competence. He roots for the Dallas Cowboys, and he rides a Harley. He is a change agent and consensus builder who is committed to the city of Columbus. From the beginning, the mayor stated that he was seeking in the next police chief, and I quote, "I am looking for a change agent who will pursue innovation and excellence in policing, someone who will use the recommendations of the resident-led Safety Advisory Commission as a roadmap to guide the division. I am looking for someone committed to increasing diversity among police officers, aligning how we police with community expectations, and approaching this position as an opportunity to serve and protect every person in every neighborhood. I am pleased to say we found this person in our new chief, Tom Quinlan. I will now turn the remainder of the program over to Colleen. Colleen?
Thank you so much, Dawn. And you know, I was with you, Chief, until we got to that Dallas Cowboys part. I'm a Steelers fan, so we can talk about that later.
Okay.
Welcome, and thank you for agreeing to answer some questions during a very tough time, and some of these questions will probably be tough.
Thank you for having me, Colleen.
Let's start with how your police force is handling COVID-19. Just overall, give us the overview of how you are training them for the new realities of monitoring and patrolling and policing the streets of Columbus.
Well, I think what I'd say is that, one, we have great people. And because of that, the officers have remained flexible and focused, are the 2 words I would use. They have been flexible to every plan we've implemented, to every policy we've implemented to change how we do business. They've really stepped up and been open to new ideas, new ways of doing things, several things that we can't do it that way, just never been done. Now all of a sudden is, let's try this. So they've been very flexible and open. They've been very focused on protecting the public. So officers are still out there engaging in every call for service, everything we've always done, in addition to handling a lot of the crisis that goes along with global pandemic.
Let's talk about just the basic realities of police work. You're very often, when you're taking a suspect into custody, let's say, or you are intervening in a domestic violence situation, you're on top of people. You cannot maintain a social distance. How are they protecting themselves, and how are they protecting the people they encounter?
Well, we're doing a variety of things. One, where it's possible, we're calling ahead and having people come out of the house, so we're not having to go from one house inside to someone else's house inside. And because of that, it's limiting the risk of cross-contamination. But you're right, we cannot social distance when we're having to put hands on someone to place them under arrest or separate them from a disturbance. So one of the things we do is everyone that we take in custody, we put a face mask on. Anyone that we interact with on the street in just a consensual encounter, we have availability of a face mask for them. Officers all have access to an N95 and a little bit more robust mask, and also a mask that's called a P100 that was completely protective during a COVID-type virus that's transmitted. We have access to rubber gloves, of course, and we train officers how to put gloves on and take them off so they don't create a contamination by removing them. We're encouraging officers to dress at work and return to street clothes before they leave, so they're not taking anything home from their uniform, and take clothes to dry cleaners or wash them in other manners. We have a lot of course, hand sanitizer like everybody does right now, or we're trying to get our hands on it. To make sure we desanitize, and we take care of our cars. Between every shift, they're cleaned. Our radio room personnel, where we dispatch all our calls and we take all the 911 calls, they all, between every rotation, between the time someone's on a call station, gets up and leaves, that call station stays empty until it comes in and gets cleaned. So we're taking a lot of precautions, and it's worked, fortunately. So far, we've had very few people test positive, and of those who have tested positive, only 2 to 3 of them have even been where we can possibly relate those to police-related activities. Most have been through out-of-state travel or through family members.
This is a stressful time for those who are on the front line. I read just this morning, that an emergency room doctor in New York committed suicide. She just was overburdened by the stress and had indicated to family members that she just couldn't take it anymore. You guys are on the front line. You are in a high-stress environment every day when there is no pandemic. You don't know what you're going to come upon when you walk up to a car, when you pull them over. Your officers always have to be on high alert. Are you concerned about the psychological stress right now that officers really have never faced before?
Thank you for the concern about officers, because that is a reality. We are always concerned about that. In fact, the executive staff, which is the deputy chiefs and chief, we've met 7 days a week throughout this crisis to plan for what our response is. And almost every one of those meetings, we have a wellness piece to it. For instance, some people that may suffer from some type of an addiction like alcohol, or just need mental health crisis counseling, those aren't always available right now. So we're paying attention to what's going on. Matter of fact, this Friday we have Lisa Calendar, our Employee Assistance Program, our EAP administrator, coming in to talk to us about what she's hearing from other officers and some of the stress. We are concerned about rises in suicides in the public and with officers, because the stress is very high on everyone right now. So we're really paying attention to that. The one thing I would like to promote, though, is last year, while I was the interim, I started a new bureau in the Division of Police, brand new bureau is Wellness Bureau. I felt we had to take care of our officers who deal with a lot of stress before they can be properly in the right mindset to go out and deal with a lot of problems they face on the street. So between the peer assistance team and the chaplain program and the therapy dog unit that we started this year or in 2019, between all the different components of wellness that we've implemented, we've been able to provide resources to officers to make sure that they are in a good frame of mind when they're going out and interacting with the public, so they get the best service, the public receives the best service possible.
You're in the position of doing something you've never had to do before, which is go up to groups of people who are simply gathering together quietly, privately. It's happened on the OSU campus, near the OSU campus, where kids were outside, clustered together. You can't be together, and police officers essentially have to go up and say, you may not know it, but you're breaking the law right now. What's been the anecdotal reactions to situations like that, and do you want your officers to be in the position of essentially being behavior police?
Our goal has always been to build relationships and partnerships with the community, to be transparent and be accountable ourselves. We don't want to be seen as a bully or somebody's an enforcer. We have that role. We take action when we have to. But our goal is to have positive encounters. So we take the approach of an education. We have not issued citations to people for violating the law. We've used education and given other options or alternatives they may seek, unless they're already engaged in violations of the law of some other type. We have people that are renting an Airbnb and creating a big house party, and there's a lot of guns and people fighting, and police are called there. Before we found stuff out, it was just fights. We broke things up. We told them they need to disperse. We got called back. We found 60 people there. So at that time, we started issuing citations and filing charges. Again, those still aren't arrest situations because Sheriff Baldwin has been doing an outstanding job at the jail, making sure we protect people who are find themselves in a circumstance to be an inmate. So we're reducing the number of people we're taking to jail and issuing summons. So again, it gives them a chance to go and explain what they were doing to a judge, and there's due process in that regard. So we've really made a chance, a concentrated effort to not be the social enforcer, but to provide education, provide alternatives and options that they may choose, make them aware of what the law is in case they're not aware of it. But you got to remember, officers wear body cameras on their chest, and they're filming that, and it's easily to identify. We can track who is there, and the city attorney has the option to file charges if they do. The important thing here to remember is it's not just about your right to do what you want to do in your own life. Your actions may be harming somebody else, putting their life in danger, and that's a police purpose, to protect people from others who are putting them in danger, whether it's speeding down the roadway, drinking and driving, or potentially spreading a virus that could cause somebody's death. So we do have a role. It's just how we carry that role out.
On the steps of the State House, protesters are clearly violating all of the rules for social distancing and wearing masks. They are doing that as their right to free speech, to challenge government, to go to the very steps of the State House and protest the actions, because many of them are suffering financially. But they are still breaking the law. They are still not following social distancing. Why aren't police going into that environment and giving warnings and saying you are not following the public health laws right now?
Well, we have issued warnings, and again, we partner very well with the State Highway Patrol. I talk to Dallas Baldwin on a routine basis. I talk to Colonel Fambro from OSP on a regular basis. We coordinate our efforts on these. People are exercising their ability to file, redress with the government, to air their grievances to the government and ask for a change in policy. So we try to respect their opportunity to do that while we're trying to encourage them to keep social distance, while we're trying to encourage people to wear masks or take precautions. Or in absence of that, again, through education, we try to do that. We also try to limit who else is there so they're not contaminating other people. And sometimes what I've seen at the State House is a lot of people driving by aren't paying any attention to them. The police are staying, instead of being right there in their face, staying around the corner and away, so we're there to respond quickly if we need to. However, we're not giving them an audience to turn their aggression towards the police. So a lot of times they say what they have to say and then just disperse because no one's really there to cheer them on or to be a counter-protester. So we're taking measures when we need to. Again, they're being documented by body camera. City Attorney's Office is free to file charges on any of them that they wish to, and we'll provide that evidence to them so they can do that. But it's not someone that we can actually arrest and take to jail right now anyhow because of the restrictions on who we are putting into the local jail.
Last week, Stephanie Hightower from the Urban League was sitting in the chair that you're sitting in right now. And one of the things that she pointed out is that she believes black men are going to be reluctant to put a mask over their face because of racial disparities in the way they're perceived if they're seen covering their face. What do you say to men who might be saying to themselves, am I safer to keep my face open than I am to put a bandana or a mask on?
Well, I'll tell you directly. I was, just a quick anecdote, I was shopping at a local store recently, and I realized I was the only person in there that did not have my mask on. I left it at my office on my desk. And I was actually being ostracized. I was being looked at really weird because I was not wearing a mask. That's the experience anyone in the community should have, is that the police are going to look at you maybe odd if you are not wearing a mask. We expect you to wear a mask. We want you to wear a mask. We want you to follow the governor and health commissioner's directions. We are all about public safety. That's our goal. That's our focus. If wearing a mask generates public safety, then we support that, and we are not looking at people because they may be wearing a mask, no matter who they are. We're looking at them when they're not wearing a mask. So we encourage that.
You are going to be in a position when, as businesses reopen, as the economy gets grinding once again, it's a slow rollout, but businesses are expected to have their employees wearing masks. The state is encouraging people to wear masks. What will be the role, do you envision, for your officers as government allows business to get back on, back in motion?
My goal and my hope is that we can continue moving forward on implementing the important work of the Division of Police by implementing the matrix recommendations, the mayor's Community Safety Advisory Commission recommendations, restructuring how we are responsive in a patrol purpose, doing police work. Being the mass police is not something that we're really designed to focus on because, again, we want to have those positive encounters. There are remedies to do that. There is 311, and the health department can go out and have enforcement power to advise people they're violating the law, or if someone wants you to leave their establishment because you're not wearing a mask, to look at it from a criminal trespass standpoint, not a health code violation of not wearing a mask. Again, we have a lot of things we really need to do. Commercial burglaries right now are up. Felonious assaults and gun crimes are up. Domestic violence is up. We need to focus on stuff that only the police can really go in and do immediate intervening action until the courts get involved. There are others in the community, there are professionals that can handle situations about wearing masks and what businesses can be essential and open and which ones cannot.
For the last several years, I've been a family law attorney and handled divorces. And I know at times of stress, domestic violence becomes a real problem, especially in a troubled marriage. All of a sudden, everybody's stuck together in their homes. And in a stressful situation when maybe money isn't coming in and the kids have to be taught, are you seeing differences in domestic violence calls right now?
We are. We have over 2,000 already this year. And what I will say is if there's something that keeps me up at night right now, it is the concern of what are we not finding. We are finding a lot of domestic violence calls. We've had several that have involved firearms. So we see that violence. But what I'm concerned about and what keeps me up is what a lot of people call when the abuser leaves because they are still in the home, they're not leaving. What is not getting reported, and that's why we're encouraging text to 911 and other ways to get with the police. But the other thing that concerns me in that regard as well is most of our child abuse gets reported through a school contact, and over 50% of them come in through school contact. So when they're not in school, they're not reaching, they don't have that adult in their life to reach out to report it, who then contacts Children's Services and contacts us, and we investigate. They're still stuck in potentially dangerous environments that we cannot learn about. So I've made clear to every officer, when you're out there, look beyond the reason that you're there. If you're there over a neighbor dispute or someone broke into a garage or whatever, and you're having an interaction, look beyond that and see if there's a child that needs your attention, needs somebody to ask, are you okay? Do you need anything? How can we help? So we're encouraging all our officers to make sure they look at what else they're maybe not just being told, but what are they not hearing, and take action on that as well.
Are you seeing any other changes in the trends in crime? Now that we are all at home, have break-ins gone down? Have
Yes.
other kinds of crimes, I imagine, car crashes are down? Everything's changing, isn't it?
It is. We still see a rise in commercial burglaries, as I said, felonious assaults, and gun crimes, people engaging in carrying guns, firing into houses, and dangerous activity like that. What we're seeing less is residential burglaries, because a lot of those burglaries occur while people are gone at work. Since they're home, there's a decline in that. Certainly a decline in traffic stop, or I'm sorry, not traffic stops per se, but actual traffic crashes. The one thing I have found to be a positive, there's no positive out of a global pandemic. The one thing that has been helpful is the commute has been very easy to do during the morning time, because traffic is down, less crashes. So we are seeing certain crimes trend down, but other crimes that are taking its place.
Has it changed your manpower, your planning, because you're answering different kinds of calls?
Yes, one of the things we've done is actually implemented a telephone reporting unit that we redirect. We've redirected over 2,000 calls that would normally an officer would respond. And it's not that we don't have the manpower, the staffing, the officers to respond. The issue is they're going to your home, and then they're going to someone else's home, and maybe 8, 10 different people in a day. We're reducing those exposures and letting them take the call over the phone. And then if there's evidence they need picked up, we send an evidence tech out to pick it up at an agreed time. That way we're able to get the report in and follow up on it without having to have direct interaction. So we are making changes. One of the things we need to do, though, is if one officer becomes positive or is exposed to a positive person, and they worked out of a precinct house, then they may have exposed everyone at that location. So we have a mitigation plan in place where we have people ready to respond within an hour. We can send the entire workplace home and bring, whether it be detectives or patrol officers, and bring them in and stand up that unit with all new officers after we've cleaned it with a professional cleaning crew, of course, as well. So we do have plans in place, and our model so far has been very successful. We are working right now on a step program to phase out of that and back to more normal operations.
You had to make sudden changes once COVID-19, it became clear how difficult it was.
Yes.
And the governor has said when he closed the Arnold, for example, everyone was outraged, and we were all so surprised. None of us saw what was coming, that all of us would have differences in our lives. Did you find, as you were redirecting manpower and talking to your officers about all these changes they had to make, about the way they interact with people and what kind of calls they can go to, did you get any pushback from officers? Were any of them among those who said this is a hoax, it's not as bad as everyone thinks it's going to be? Were people reluctant to adjust to this new normal?
I haven't had that experience. Officers have been very good at just following direction, and the officers we work with today are more willing to change and do things different than I've ever seen them before. So when the Arnold happened, just as a little anecdote, I was actually sitting in the mayor's office with the mayor, and we were talking about what a gutsy call. The mayor and the director were spoke with the same voice on that, which is not happening in a lot of major cities across the country where the governor and mayor may be issuing conflicting orders. Our mayor and governor were all on the same page, gave the same order, and we were talking about in late February, early March, how aggressive that was and progressive. Joking in a way that, this is going to look like a really smart move a month away. That was a leap of faith. They trusted that it would be the right call a month down the road, and turns out they were exactly right. We were on the front lines of making some very progressive, very bold choices. They spoke with the same voice, and things went really well. So officers have been open to change. The governor and the mayor have been coordinating their efforts, and it has worked for our community. I track every day the number of exposures in Franklin County, what the current positive numbers are, and compare those with Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Detroit. And the numbers are very informative. I think the steps we've taken have really helped people in our community.
As we get closer to summer, I know in the past the police department has had to get ready for changes in crime, young people out on the streets. We've heard from the city of Hilliard that the city's pools are going to be closed. Haven't heard yet about everything that's going to be going on in the city recreation department, but there are going to be changes, and there are going to be kids with pent-up energy and frustrations and can't play basketball right now on the courts. Do you anticipate, or what are you doing to get ready for that surge in summer, especially teen angst?
Well, that's a perfect segue to discuss our new youth services programs. I created this model last year while I was interim, a youth services unit that focuses just on interacting with youth where they are. It was originally planned to be in rec centers and boys and girls clubs and schools. Now we're changing that model a little bit to where teens are going to be, middle school, high school age children, teens mostly. And so we're developing some new plans to how to locate teens where they are and have a positive impact and give them safe places to be outside and engage in their everyday life as we come out of some of the restrictions without creating crowding in inside locations or still being able to respect social distancing purposes. So our youth services unit is actually working on that right now.
So you're trying to be proactive instead of reactive.
Absolutely.
You know, we also get questions from people who sign up online ahead of time, and we happen to get some really good questions from some of our viewers. And so I'll start with Stephanie Clevenger Murphy from the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. Her question is, how will these new COVID-19 hygiene and safety rules be enforced once the businesses are open? Will waiters and servers need to wear masks? And if so, and if they don't, will there be penalties?
Well, the good thing about our role, again, is to enforcing criminal law, and there's a lot of things that are a violation of law, but it's the Ohio Administrative Code, comes under health, and we're going to let people that are professionals in sanitation and health work on what the right balance is between wearing gloves, wearing masks, whether it be servers, whether it be patrons. We're going to allow them to focus on their area of specialty, and we're going to resume our operations of making sure the public's safe from other people who would intend them harm.
Columbus Zoo made some very difficult decisions this week, laid off some people and eliminated a number of jobs altogether because of COVID-19. Bill Coben of Maryhaven says, is Columbus thinking about laying off first responders due to a lack of income tax funding? Are you concerned that that might be a possibility for you?
I think the idea of balancing what the income is and what our budgets are have to be reevaluated after what they were set at first of the year when we started 2020 as what the new projections are. And we have to make smart adjustments. Whether those result in furloughs or layoffs, that'll be something that is decided by the city finance director and the auditor and the mayor and city council. My job is to work with what the city's generous enough to give me. Personnel-wise, resource-wise, equipment, facility-wise. Whatever that balance is, whatever cuts need to be made by someone who has that authorization to make those cuts, I can assure the community that I'm going to work with what resources I'm given, the personnel I'm given, just like we did during the past 6 weeks. We have really made changes on how we provide responsiveness to the public. We'll continue to do that and find the right balance so the public's safe. That I can assure the public.
Do you anticipate, not that you're going to lay off, but this might impact the recruit classes? When is your next class scheduled to begin?
Next class begins in mid-June, and we've already discussed that. We're working with the State Police Academy to make sure that we can provide classes that allow for social distancing. There's a lot of training we have to do that involves hands-on, face-to-face, touching interactions. So we have to deal with that. So what we would do is we plan to go forward until we're told to stand down. We have all the plans in place to make sure we maintain the proper precautions so we don't lose a class just due to a quarantine situation.
We want to remind people that we are going to be getting some questions that are coming in as well from viewers. Jane's going to have those for us in just a minute, but let me ask you this one other question. This comes from Lori Overmeyer of Gettler Associates. She says, adverse times seem to bring scammers out of the woodwork, don't they just? And I'll bet you have seen or heard all of them. But are there any new scams out there that surprised even you?
Boy, right off the top of my head, there have been some we've talked about again at these daily staff meetings. I can't think of an anecdote right off the top of my head that where people have tried something new that I just could never have predicted or foreseen. But there are people are vulnerable to scams. Please be very careful with any type of something that's too good to be true or something that's offered no strings attached. You have to be careful because people will make attempts to exploit the situation. And if you have that situation, please call either 311 or call the police, and we'll make sure we try to follow up on that.
And we always say, don't give your social security number out
Never.
over the telephone. Don't do it. Jane, do you
Never.
have some questions for us from some of the online viewers?
I do have a couple. Thank you very much. Kelly Mills asks, the chief said we have had 2,000 domestic violent calls this year. How does that compare to other years' similar time frame?
Again, it's about on balance for what we see at this point in the year every year. What I'm concerned about is what we have not received. And so that's what, again, keeps me up at night. How many situations where people are at risk or in a vulnerable situation that cannot get help right now because they're not able to respond. But we typically see 10 to 15 domestic violence calls for service a day in the Division of Police. Right now, we're seeing several days where we'll have 30. So they are up. The total number year to date is staying pretty much on par, but there's surge days where we see more than others.
Is there a shift to more text than calls? I mean, if the abuser is in the household, does the person who's the victim feel more comfortable using text? Are you seeing that?
I would hope so. We're trying to promote that as an option. Again, we're trying to let officers know if they're out on patrol or in someone's presence to look for or make opportunities for people to reach out, and whether it be children or adults, to reach out and say, something else is going on here, I need help.
You know, what caught my ear was when you said that teachers and counselors very often let you know when children are being abused and when there are signs of abuse. Clearly, no adults or other adults aren't having contact with most children. Are you seeing changes in those numbers? Have the reports of child abuse gone down?
They are trending down right now, and that's why we're concerned about that. It kind of goes against what we would anticipate seeing, so we're concerned that not being in school is leading to some of that.
And not being at church either.
Right.
Families
Church,
can't
right.
even go
Yeah.
to church. Trip Lazarus asks, he says, last week we heard how communities of color are disproportionately affected by COVID crisis. How does this impact how the CPD interacts with this community?
I looked that up on the Health Commissioner's report, and from what I saw, that the numbers were very much tracking in line with population trends. So again, we deal with individuals and issues, not groups based on race and gender and ethnicity. We're here to be a service to anyone in our community. Again, it doesn't have to be a citizen. It's anyone that's in our community. We have a lot of people who are residents. We also have a lot of people who come to our city for work or for play. Anyone who's here that we encounter, we're there to provide a service for, and we deal with the issue and the individual, not groups of individuals as based on a preset definition.
One of the things that Stephanie Hightower said last week that struck me was that people of color, neighborhoods of color, believe there's policing in their neighborhoods, but if it's white suburbs, it's more likely to be viewed as public safety. She said that so sometimes it's a matter of perception. And I know over the past, before your tenure, over the past decades even, there have been questions about how policing is done in minority neighborhoods. Is that something you're still working on?
Absolutely. I have heard that exact question and concern, and we are trying to make sure we train and make sure we have policies in place and make sure we deliver services that are completely blind, if you will, that we provide the same level of service, that it's not, no one should have a different feeling for how police delivered service to them than others. Again, our goal is just to go in and provide calm, restore order, make arrests. Again, our purpose isn't to arrest. That's sometimes a consequence or an outcome, but that's not our purpose. Our purpose is to provide for a safe environment and protect victims. And again, sometimes somebody needs to speak up for the victim. And sometimes the only people out there in this day and age to do that is the police. And so we're there for victims as well. It's not a difference of policing or public safety. It's responding to calls. I think what we're seeing now is officers are responding to calls much faster than what we have in the past. That's why we're getting to areas where are putting us in a confrontation situation with suspects with guns sooner. So the good thing is once we get there, no other citizens or community members are harmed. Police are putting themselves in that danger to stand between them and the person in the public. So that's a good outcome in police world.
Are there suggestions that you have for the general public? Is there anything that we can do in terms of helping you do your job, helping the police officers do their job right now?
Yes. The thing that everyone can do is be more willing to create a relationship with an officer and provide officers information. We're looking at cold case information right now, cold case homicides, and people are coming forward 10, 20 years later to finally say, well, I know what happened, here's what's going on. Why wait that long? We see people who are actually engaged in violent crime tonight, and we ask people who were present, who did this? What do we need to know? And they're not sharing that information. So we really need people to be good citizens of the community, good community partners, and provide information to the police. Again, we'll protect that information to the extent the law allows us to, but we cannot people think everything's solved through forensics today. That helps us prosecute and convict, but actually solving the crime, it really helps when somebody talks to us, tells us what they know, and we can talk to that individual, get their side of the story, and make a decision whether to present that to a grand jury and let them decide how to proceed.
I don't know what the problem is. On Law and Order, they do it in an hour.
They get the crime solved in an hour
Yeah,
every
they
week.
don't
The
seem to
reality is,
have
real
them.
quick on that, the reality is, one thing I want to touch on is our technology issues. It's taken us over an hour just to complete the report because we're using 15-year-old technology. Technology, as everyone knows, changes in the 6 months now. So one of my primary focuses this year, in addition to how we staff patrol to be responsive to the public, is solving our technology issues and how we complete reports, how radio dispatches calls, how we handle criminal case management, and how we handle early intervention for officers that may need more supervision than others.
We've seen in Cleveland, as recently as a week ago, an officer went to a simple shoplifting report, and the suspect spit in his face and said, "I have COVID-19." Now, that means everyone else in the store at the time is frightened. The clerk in the store who called is frightened. The officer is answering the call is frightened. Does this person really have COVID-19? How are police going to handle situations like that? Because that's going to happen. It's happened in other cities. Do you make this person get tested, even if he says, "I was just joking, I don't have COVID-19"? You now have a group of people who are very concerned about their safety. So what's your recommendation to officers who find themselves in that situation?
Well, what people may not be aware of is that we've had several of those incidents right here in Columbus. And I have personally talked to City Attorney Zach Klein on it, and he has assured me, and he has put out press releases, that if you threaten an officer that you have COVID-19, you will be prosecuted for that. So the charge is harassing someone with a bodily fluid, harassing an officer with bodily fluid, and it is an arrestable offense, and we are arresting. It does allow for mandatory testing, but whether they actually are positive or they're just inducing panic by making the threat, there's still criminal charges and consequences tied to that, and I take City Council Attorney Klein's word that he will hold those individuals accountable.
But what do? You take this person who now claims to have COVID-19, who is willing to spit on others, to the jail where they're already dealing with the problem of trying to keep people separated. How, just physically, how are you going to handle these situations?
The jail has a very good system in place to actually, people who are claiming to be or are known to be COVID positive are going to one specific jail, and they're completely quarantined, isolated in that facility, and others who are tested by screening for temperatures and other questionnaires will remain at a different jail facility. And so we already have plans in place. Again, I mentioned earlier, I talk to Sheriff Baldwin all the time, talk to Colonel Fambro from OSP, and my other partners in the metropolitan area for chiefs. I also have a weekly, every Friday, have a national meeting with police chiefs from major cities, the 69 largest police agencies across the country. We have a telephone conference every Friday, and we talk about what's going on in our city, how we deal with these specific issues, what actions we're taking, what trends we're seeing. So we're all pretty much in line on that already.
Jane?
Yes, how is, a couple questions. Steve Swift asked, have you reallocated patrols during the crisis? If so, what areas, and will they be phased back to a different or to normal?
Right. What we've done is implement an exposure mitigation plan across the division, not just patrol, but in detective units and everywhere else in the division. So if some unit gets quarantined because of an exposure, we have a ready reserve that are able to come in within an hour and completely take over that whole operation, so no loss in service. And again, we may actually have them report to a different location, stand up that unit while that facility's cleaned and while those cars are cleaned. But nevertheless, we have a robust plan in place to do that, and we also have a 3-phase plan right now to stand that down, wind it down, to come out of that. And we're really embracing new ideas of, again, we've had issues in the past where people say, well, we've always done it this way or it can't be done. Officers are more open right now to saying, hey, we tried this, it's working really well, let's keep doing this. So we have a lot of good policy coming in place that we can be more proactive and have more free time on the street to serve the public.
Have you had officers test positive or be in situations where a family member has tested positive, requiring them to be in quarantine and maybe the people that they've worked with to be quarantined?
Yes, the majority of the incidents that we've had, like I said, of those who have tested positive, only a couple have been related through contact tracing to work. The rest of them have been family members or out-of-state travel. So we have had that. We have quarantine. We also have a system in place where people are required to go to daily monitoring, report to one of the local hospitals. They're checked by an independent healthcare provider for the questionnaires and the monitoring for temperature, et cetera, and are cleared to go to work before they ever come to work on a daily basis.
We have one more question.
We do. So in a perfect world, if you hadn't been shoved over the cliff by COVID-19, what would your aspirations be for your division as you're moving in as the new chief?
Well, my aspirations are to develop a plan, a theme this year called relational policing, and that's something that Major City Chiefs is pushing as their message. Relational policing, making patrol operations more efficient, and improving our technologies. And on top of all that, the other important thing is to implement as many of the matrix and the Mayor's Community Safety Advisory Commission recommendations that we can, given the budget and given the collective bargaining agreements. But we are making, there's 139 matrix recommendations, 80 the Mayor's Commission recommendations, and we are well on our way to implementing most of those.
Well, wonderful. Thank you both. I hope that all of you found this as reassuring as I did. I've always felt safe in Columbus, and I think I feel even safer now. Thank you very much. We'd like to invite all of you to join us next week at noon, live streaming Wednesday, May 16th, when Columbus Partnership CEO Alex Fisher and Cameron Mitchell of Cameron Mitchell Restaurants take the CMC stage to discuss how we might be restarting businesses. And Colleen will be back with us again with NBC4. We're grateful for support today for the forum from Eastern Town Center and our live stream partners, NBC4, NBC4i, WOSU Public Media, PNC, Tom E. Daly Foundation, MORPC, the Columbus Dispatch, OSU Wexner Medical Center, and for our speakers, Don Tyler Lee, thank you, Don, for that nice introduction, Chief Quinlan, and Colleen Marshall. Thank you very, very much for being here. And we thank all of you who registered online and made a donation to the Columbus Metropolitan Club for us to be able to continue the community conversation during our live streaming. Thank you so much. We're very, very grateful for your support. I pray for everyone's safety. Be well, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you again.